Travers joins us now, ABC News correspondent from the White House. Hi, Karen. How are you feeling this morning?
Good morning. Oh, it's Friday.
Yeah, you better believe it. You know, there's a certain degree of irony here that the President of the United States of America, who basically called out the leader of North Korea, what do you call him, a little rocket man or something to that effect? I mean,
Yeah.
he said all sorts of hateful things about him, and suddenly they're best buddies, at least, seemingly so, and they're going to meet up in Singapore here before too much longer.
Yeah, June 12th, one-day session in Singapore, very high-stakes meeting. But it is interesting if you look at some of the rhetoric from last year. Rocket Man, the suicide mission, fire and fury threats. I mean, the president at one point tweeted when we were on a trip in Vietnam, he says, I don't know why he calls me something. He says, I wouldn't call him short and fat, which, of course, everybody said, you just did call him that.
Yeah.
But now all of that has been put aside, and the president is suggesting it's a new chapter in this contentious relationship. He says we're starting off on a new footing. Very happy that Kim Jong-un released those detainees ahead of their session next month. But it is the big question, of course, is what happens if this doesn't work out? Because the president keeps issuing these caveats. Like last night he said, I think it's going to be a big success, but my attitude is if it isn't, it isn't. But if it isn't a big success, if it doesn't meet the bar that the president has set of North Korea agreeing to give up all of its nuclear weapons, complete denuclearization, then what happens next? Where do the negotiations go? Where do the conversations go? And do we go back to those taunts from the last year and ramping up the very heated rhetoric and threats of military action?
Do you find it interesting, the choice of Singapore? I was a betting man thinking that it would be at the DMZ.
The president really wanted it to be at the DMZ based on his public comments. He said that would be a great place to do it because you have all these people there and there could be a grand celebration if there's a big deal to announce. He really liked the symbolism, I think, of bringing two countries together and doing it in a place like that. I think there were some logistics issues involved in it, and there was a better option to do it in a third-party country. You might have other world leaders coming. Allies in the region might not sit in that meeting, but be there for all of it. So this could be a really big deal. But as we've been told, it's one day. This is not a week of negotiations. They jet in, they sit down, they agree or they don't agree, and then that's it.
The other point is, if you look at it from a world stage viewpoint, a lot of people are talking about humanitarian prizes for our president, but at the same time for the leader of North Korea, he's going to get what he and his father and his grandfather have wanted for decades, and that is a picture of shaking hands with the President of the United States of America.
And that's where critics will say, they haven't agreed to anything yet. They've done nothing to be rewarded with that photo op, with that meeting, and that this elevates Kim Jong-un to the level of other world leaders the president has met with. And he doesn't deserve that. That's what critics are saying. And there's some truth to that. I mean, there's a reason why previous presidents haven't met with North Korean leaders. This president will say, he's doing things differently, and he's the one to make a historic deal. He's the best negotiator, and that's why things are heading where they are.
The other thing, too, and it's as a secondary in nature, will the First Lady travel with the president so that she can be seen with, if you will, the First Lady of North Korea, who is somewhat reclusive, as they don't call it the Hermit Kingdom for nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's another political front to be viewed. Probably wouldn't happen, but
I doubt it. There's no indication either way, yes or no. There hasn't been any discussion of that, but given how quick the trip is and given just the significant business diplomacy, I would be surprised. But I've learned in the last 16 months to never say never about anything around here.
Well, you got to know too that at the same time there's going to be a huge press coverage of this whole thing. I mean, from not only here in the United States, but North Korea, China must have an incredible interest in what's going to transpire here, since they are so closely allied with North Korea in providing them with aid in any number of ways.
China, Japan, South Korea, other South Asian countries, huge interest in seeing how this plays out and what this means, for their own security, regional stability, but also just, I think, the curiosity factor, too, for so many of, how does Kim Jong-un handle this? How does he pull this off? And are they able to reach something big, or does everybody walk away from the table with the status quo?
Karen, enjoy your weekend, and we will talk again very soon, I'm sure.
Thank you.